G'day disciple makers. So you're ready to make some disciples? Well, I think you're going to have to set aside some time. And that's what this video is about, setting aside some time. Think about it, you're not going to make a disciple if you only have one conversation with some person. Well, it looks like Jesus did, but the discipling relationship after the establishment of that relationship is quite another thing. It's an ongoing commitment. So Jesus met with his disciples often. In fact, they lived together and they travelled together. Maybe they weren't always together, but when you read the Gospels, you get the idea that they were constantly going places and doing things together. They ate together frequently, and that in itself is significant. Here's what I recommend. Read the Gospels through one more time and look at how Jesus included his disciples in whatever it was that he was doing. And next, you need to think about your calendar and your timetable and how those are going to change to reflect your desires and plans to have some discipling relationships. For someone who wants to start learning how to make disciples, I suspect that you're going to need to set aside some time. That's one of the first things that I had to arrange. I'm the sort of person who has a routine, and I've always kept my routine. It wasn't until I'd been praying earnestly for some time about making disciples that I realised that it would be really inconvenient if I was going to have to spend some time with somebody regularly. Well, a no-brainer, but if that's anything like your life, then you're going to have to make some time somehow, somewhere. Actually, when I did start to make time to look for disciples and spend time with people who might become my disciples, my wife had a few things to say about it. Now, you're going to have to sort these things out, these arrangements, in some ways that you may not have thought about up to now. How much do you desire to make some disciples? How much does it matter to you? And what price are you willing to pay? What sacrifices are you willing to make? One friend of mine who expressed a desire to meet with me regularly was working 18 hours every day of the week. He knew that his health was unlikely to hold out long term with that kind of a schedule, but that discipling relationship that he said he wanted never materialised. He never made the time for it. It takes two to put it together, and as much as it depends on you though, be available. Now, once you've set some time aside, how are you going to fill that time? You need to think about this and work on using that time productively and effectively. Here's how I've made use of the time that I eventually set aside for disciple making. I look for opportunities to meet with people on a regular basis. Some of you are going to do the training course that we offer called 21 Days to Becoming a Disciple Maker, and that's named after the book that we use for the course. It's like a manual. Setting aside the time to work through this training course would be the ideal way to get started in the time slot that you set aside. Praying for people on your France sheet, having conversations and learning how to progress conversations through the 4 quadrants is a great way to use the time for learning the habits of a disciple maker. And by the way, that France sheet and the conversation quadrants, those are tools that we learn to use in the 21 days training. And I've found them to be effective for setting the pattern for future activities involving more people. If the person that you're meeting with responds with interest and then begins to share what it is that you're discussing with their friends and family, well, then you get the chance to suggest that they might like to involve others in the discussion that you're having. You might renegotiate the time slot, but in my experience, the group forms or seems to naturally form at that particular time that you've been meeting with that person. I usually do these things on a weekly basis, and that pattern seems to come about naturally. Now, it is good to throw open the decision on when and where to meet, and I do this as soon as others are beginning to attend and it's looking like being regular. That's the same time when I propose to the person of peace that since they are his friends and his family, or both, it's his thing, his friends, and he can lead the discussion, or better yet, encourage other people to lead the discussion. I'm going to keep my mouth shut from now on so that he can do his own thing, and we might keep meeting at other times in a different time slot in order for me to encourage and cheer him on. Now, you can be as flexible as you can, but I think that you will need to set aside a block of time to allow these groups to form. So that's it for today. See you next time.